All right, so we got that going. Like I said, I'm going to put something in the chat here. Normally we just ask for your tracking series, but this is a fairly in-depth topic tonight, so a little bit more information if you could. The tracking series that you're with, if you use Westhold or MyLapse, and then at the end of the night, if you take cash or check, um, and then the last thing, if you've ran a race yet this year, specifically if you've ran race management, I don't know, some of you are promoters or scorers or what have you, but just curious, I guess, if you've ran race management this year, last year, or not at all. That'll kind of help guide the conversation tonight. I don't want to gloss over anything, but if there is a level of experience here, then I don't want to bore you guys either. So if you can just drop a reply in the chat window there, you can get there on the bottom right. There's the little chat bubble. Appreciate that, Jenny. And then I should mention too, if I do get going too fast or you guys have questions along the way, feel free to stop me. There's a little hand icon down in the bottom middle that'll allow you to raise your hand, and I can call on you, and we can take questions as we go too. We don't have to wait till the end. So just a couple minutes here before we get rolling. Got a couple MyLapse, Westhold. All right. Very good. Thank you for that. I'm just going to dive in then. I don't know if any of you were on the 1 o'clock today, but thanks for joining us here at 7 o'clock. Be a lot of the same stuff. I guess I should introduce myself. Normally Austin does these. Austin Lloyd's been with us for, I think we're coming up on 3, could be 4 years. Time flies. But my name's Ross. One of the founders, been here since the beginning. Austin wasn't able to make it tonight, so I am your substitute teacher. So again, feel free to stop me as we go, but otherwise I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. If you can see my screen there, this is the main dashboard, and tonight specifically we're going to be talking about this tab here, this race management tab. Before you can use race management, and we chatted briefly about this in one of the last webinars, you'll need to set up your season. So once you've done that, you can get to race management a couple different ways. If you have your season all set up, you can just dive into race management here. It'll take you to today's event or the next event on your schedule. Otherwise, if you do need to jump back to an event that already happened, or you want to go to a specific event, you can go through season management, events, and then go into the corresponding schedule that you made. And then for tonight, we're going to be on March 20th. And then there is a little race management button here. So before you go into there, you might want to just double check that you have the correct classes all set up. If you need to add a class or drop a class, you can do that before you jump over to race management. In this case, we have 3 classes set up. For this webinar, we're just going to work through kind of a race night using the MRP stock car class. So I will jump into race management here. And you can see now we're on that tab, and we have a whole different set of options down the left-hand side. It's meant to be kind of progressive as the night goes on. You just kind of work your way down the left-hand side. The first tab, the setup tab, you shouldn't have to do this very often. It has the option, if you change your pill draw style, to save it as your default for the given class. So essentially you can get all this kind of set up the first night, and if you save it as your defaults, you'll be good to go for the season. So jumping down to the MRP stock car class, we have the pill draw option set to at check-in, auto draw after we select the driver. This is definitely the fastest way to draw a pill. Kind of takes the back and forth out of it, but there are some other options here. You can look through those as you may. If you are still using a physical draw and not electronic draw, you can just use a manual entry option. But there are some other ones there that some people prefer as well. You'll say if you're going to use transponders or not, and if you allow rentals. So there's rental tracking involved here. If you choose to rent transponders, you can keep track of that. This required registration, that is an upgrade. You can, as drivers are checking in, you can be sure that they have a confirmed registration for whatever that registration might be. So that is an upgrade option. Pretty handy though, if you want to, kind of take some of the guesswork out of it and make sure that they are registered. You can select one of the required registrations there. Your pill draw options, your max pill. So if you're expecting 60 cars, 100 is probably a safe number. If you're expecting 90 cars, I would advise, always make sure you're on the safe side there, because if you get in a situation where you have more that show up than what you have pills, that's obviously not a great scenario. So always make sure your max pill is probably double of what you're expecting, just to be safe. This rebase pill option, not a super common feature, but one that we have had requests for. What that does is allows you to add another layer of randomization, I guess, if you will, to your pill draw. So if your rebase pill, you could draw a pill for the night, and say your rebase pill became a 37, whoever drew the 37 that night is actually your low pill, and it continues as normal from there. But just added, you know how some people are, they like to think that it's rigged, so you can always add that layer of randomness to kind of a, I guess, cool feature of the software here. So like I said, make sure to save it as your default so that the next time you come in here, you don't have to do that again. You can always go back and change it though, should you choose to. The next step down is the MRP Live tab, which I do actually have that open. I'm going to close out of MRP Live just so we can see that. When you're getting set up for the night, just go ahead and open MRP Live, launch it from the web, and that is going to go in and connect. You'll see that you're connected to Orbitz, which in this case, for the first part of the demo, we'll use Orbitz, and then for the second part, I'll use Westhold. Once that's connected, you can go ahead and just minimize that for now, and we can move on to our entries. So at your back gate, when you're checking in drivers, I'm going to jump over to the MRP stock car class here. I got a few kind of pre-checked in just to save some time and repetitiveness here, but we'll add a couple more. Maybe, let's see, Vic vendor, maybe he shows up. It'll pull in their default number if he's running a different number for the night, maybe a 9V. You can choose to set that as his default number for the next time he shows up. Otherwise, just keep his current one. If you need to add an owner, whether it be for payout reasons, points reasons, whatever the case may be, you can add an owner. And again, you can set that as the default and say if the payout goes to the owner. If you don't check that box, the payout will go to the driver. This alternate payee is an upgrade option as well that allows you to have a different payment and points option. So the points could go to this owner, payment could go to this owner. Not overly common, but if you have that scenario, we do have that available as well. You want to give them a transponder. So for this demo purposes, we're just using 1000 through 1010. I think the next one is 1009. And here's where that rental comes into play. If you want to mark that as rented. And then if it happens to be their own transponder, you can set it as the default transponder. So next time they show up, you don't have to ask. You can basically confirm that they have that same transponder. Next item down is the lineup override. This would be if a driver requests to start at the back of the heats. Maybe they have a new motor, something, maybe they're fresh, never been to the racetrack before. For whatever reason, they might want to start at the back of the heats, or they can start at the back of all races. So regardless of what pill they drew or whatever lineup calculation you might be using, they would end up falling to the back of the heats or the back of all races, should they choose to. These here, again, an upgrade option if you want to keep track of what they paid, whether it be for pit passes or any other fees that you're collecting. You can use this to track that. So if they paid, say, 25 bucks and it was cash, there's reporting on that, so you can know at the end of the night and kind of balance your back gate. This option here doesn't, I don't even know if we should have this in here anymore, but this is basically to make them active in your competitor list. So typically you would always want to leave that checked. If for some reason somebody showed up just one night and you know they're never going to be back, I suppose you could uncheck that, but there's really no reason to. Just leave that checked. And then contingency information, we're not going to dive into that, but we do have a whole set of contingency tracking that we can do. If you have questions on that, just hit us up at support@myracepass and we can dive into that as well. That is also an upgrade option. Before I add this competitor, I'm going to check down the left-hand side here. Some interesting information, I guess you can see that they've claimed their profile. If they had not, you might remind them to claim their profile and let them know that they can add in full bio information, their schedule, stats, all that kind of stuff. That's super helpful for announcers and fans alike. If you have their address on file, and then this whether or not they've submitted all their forms. So that's kind of tied to the registration. So this particular driver does not have a registration filled out at all, but if they had, it would show up here that they've had a confirmed registration or membership. We kind of use that interchangeably. Also, for those that are scoring at a facility that is tied to one of our sanctions, whether it be Wasota, USRA, Crate Racing USA, NASCAR, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. At any rate, if you're scoring at a track, or if this class happens to be one that is tied to one of our sanctions that are using us for their licensing, it will tell you if they have a license or not. And if they don't, it might actually stop you and say, hey, this guy doesn't have a, say, Wasota license. And then you can choose at that point to bypass. There'll be an option here to bypass that and let them race anyhow. There's a second option that you could check a box saying that they bought a temporary license. So I apologize, I don't have a great example of that here, but you'll see that from time to time if you are running a class that is sanctioned, that it'll actually stop you and say, well, this guy doesn't have a license. So keep an eye out for that. The last thing I want to mention here, which now suddenly escaped me, I apologize. In season management, in previous webinars, we've looked at the suspensions area. So if a driver is currently under a suspension, it'll also inform you of that here. So it might pop up and say this driver is currently suspended. Obviously, in that scenario, you would want to reach out and contact the sanctioning body and see if either they've cleared that suspension, or if you should in fact not let them race. So we're going to go ahead and add Vic Vendor. He drew a 10.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go for it, Jenny.
So if you have that, like, they have to be a member to like run for points, is that something that you can do in this area too, to show if they're running for points or not when it comes to My Race Pass?
Yeah, so what you could do is actually back on the setup tab here, what I would recommend anyway is that you actually have those that are registered or their members, you'd have them fill out a yearly registration and say, we would like for them to be required to fill out, and then go find that registration. I don't have there's a hodgepodge here, I apologize, but you would just choose that yearly registration. And what that'll do then, again, when you go to check them into the entry list, it'll pop up and say whether or not they have that registration. And then when it comes to point calculation, which we'll get to in a second, you can actually very quickly toggle whether or not you're giving points, based on their registration status. So I'll show you that when we get to the points calculation. But at the entry, at the point of entry, you'll see if they have a license or if they have a membership, so to speak, and then be able to divvy out points accordingly. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, there's a part B to that we'll get to. So just a couple more. Let's see, we're at one more driver here. So we're at 11. I think we're actually over. I just wanted 10, but we'll see what happens with the demo when we get there. I'm actually not sure. I haven't done this for a bit, so a little rusty. But anyway, any questions, I guess, before I move on to the next step of the entry list? It's one of those things, the first time out, you might, you'll get through it. You'll be fine. Just make sure that you watch a couple videos or play in the sandbox, which we'll circle back on how to get into the sandbox again. But, go through it a couple times if you haven't done it before. The first night out, like I said, you'll get through it. The second night, you're going to feel a level of comfort. And usually by the third or fourth night out, you feel, like it becomes second nature. But there's a learning curve, so don't go out there and just think that the first time out it's going to be perfect. That's not always the case, but we are here to help if you have questions. I guess I only chose drivers that have ran with me before, so I should explain this left-hand column. Any driver that shows up in the left-hand column is one that's ran in this class. Oh, I see what happened. I got back on the 410 sprints. I didn't think I had quite 10 yet. So back on MRP stock cars, I wanted to get to 10 drivers. So we're going to put one more in here. And that transponder is used. So it'll tell me that somebody's already got that transponder. We'll mark that as rented, and you can see that those rented transponders showed up here. But back on the side column, these are drivers that have ran in the MRP stock car class at your track. If you know that they've ran with you before, the quickest option to find them, because this list will get long, obviously, you don't want to sit here and scroll back and forth. Somebody shows up and you know it's, say, Austin Lloyd, type LL, and it'll filter that list. So this filter is super handy for those that have shown up before. It's just a quick way, you know, if you know their car number 99, it will automatically filter that list without having to, you know, that doesn't take any internet or any time. If they haven't raced with you before, you'll want to hit the search button, and this is where it does require us to reach out to our servers and find that profile. So when you are searching, maybe a bad example, let's search for, say, William. So William Adams comes up, but we actually wanted, I don't know, Bill. You know, try a few different variations before you go create a driver. There's, unless they haven't ran before, there's a pretty small chance that they're not in our database. This is a database of drivers that have raced again across all tracks with my race pass. So if you don't find them on your first search, try a few different searches. You can search by last name first, so you can search that way, see if they come up. Just try a few different searches, because if you happen to create a duplicate driver, that's where things get a little messy, because now you have one driver that's got points for the first number of races, and then you start using the other driver, and you'll have to reach out to us. That's, again, supported my race pass, and we'll merge them together. But when you are searching for drivers, just do a few different searches, and then on the off chance that you do have to create a new driver, so say you search for, well, that's a bad example because he doesn't have a hometown, but William Adkins, and the only one we have is from Jacksonville, Florida, and this guy says that he's from Marshall, Minnesota, the guy that you're trying to check in. There's a chance maybe that you do have to create a new driver. Maybe he's never raced before, but again, ask for, you know, do you go by Bill? Do you go, you know, is there another name that you could have had? But if he says no and you're certain that you need to create a new driver, go ahead and click this create new, and it'll walk you through the steps to actually make a new driver. But it should be somewhat rare, I would say. Last part here is the scan barcode. So the if you have an actual MRP hard card that you hand out with registration, or if a driver has claimed their profile, in the MyRacePass app, they can actually pull up a barcode. So if you have a scanner, which I can show you some resources on how to get a scanner, but you can very easily you can avoid that, you know, that searching that I was just describing. Instead of having to search, you know, for all these different variations, they can literally just show up, scan their phone, and it'll find the driver and put them into the entry list for you. I guess this page there's a lot going on here. I don't want to move on yet. There's other options here under my competitors. You can search for, the main one here would be pre-entry. So if you did an online registration for this event, you could jump over to pre-entries. We didn't do one for this particular event, but if you had, and this would show your confirmed pre-registrations, that's all in season management. So a good way to sort of slim the list down of drivers that you're looking at. Instead of just all the drivers that have ran with you, you can jump and just do pre-entries. There's a couple different options down here. Speed entry, if you do get to a level of comfort, you know, it's week 5, 6, 7, whatever of your season, and you know that you have all the owners set, the transponders are good, car numbers are good, you can actually choose speed entry, and you'll notice when I click somebody in, it didn't even give me the pop-up. So that's a pretty efficient way. Once you get comfortable, again, don't use that too soon, but you can see now I clicked on Sid here, and it just put him right in the entry list with his default number and his transponder, and it drew him a pill all in one step without having to open that window. So there are some efficiencies there that as you get comfortable, you can definitely speed up the process. This import from previous race, it's handy for multi-day events. So if you have a race on, say, Friday, and then it's now, say it was Saturday, and you want to actually just bring in everybody that was there on Friday, you can click this import from previous race, and it will allow you to say, do you want to let them keep their pill? Maybe you're drawing a new pill, so you don't want to bring in the new pill, but you want to keep their transponder. You can very easily just import that list of drivers from a specific race, and that'll also speed up the process. So the clean entries, I don't want to gloss over that, but you can see that's currently developers only. That will be something that we'll have as time goes along here. That's basically to, once you build all your lineups, if you've done this import from a previous race, so you're importing Friday to Saturday and you've made your lineups, but there's some no-shows or they've scratched, you can clean your entries and it'll pull anybody back out of the entry list that wasn't in a lineup. So something to keep your eyes out there for there. Last thing, and I think then we can move on. If you made a mistake, other than obviously their pill draw, you can always go back and edit the entry. They need to change their car number, their transponder, their team, all that stuff that you saw in the previous step. You can always go and edit that, and there's a number of other options here too under the little pencil icon here off to the right. So take a look at those and familiarize yourself with them. Any questions on any of those? I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to gloss over them and get moving too quickly here, but in the interest of time, I probably better. So unless there's any questions, I will go ahead and move on. So the next step, again, down the left-hand side will be your races tab. Make sure you're on the correct class. And we're going to add, we're just going to add one heat race. You can put in the number of laps, how many need to go to tech, maybe top 3. And then you kind of just build out your night. So we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to run it one heat, one feature. But you can see there's a number of options here, whether you're running a dash, if you're going to qualify. A special race is kind of a catch-all if you have maybe like a last chance race or different options there. And then hot laps. Hot laps, I would recommend running one of those just so that you can make sure everybody has a transponder on their car. So yeah, you build out your races. The only ones that require this first drop down are the feature, obviously. So for the heat race, we don't have to choose any of that. Just your heat race, your feature, and feature race, I guess we'll go 20 laps and we'll do top 5 to tech. I hit add, and again, you have the opportunity to rename them if you want to put a sponsor there. Maybe you're actually going to cut the laps down to 6, and so on and so forth. The other piece, I guess, on this page here, you'll actually set up your transfers. So from the heat race, we're going to take everybody. So everybody's going to run the feature. So you'd say top all. If you, in a normal situation, you had multiple heats, maybe a B feature, you would say just the top 4 are going to the A. And then if you had a B feature, you could say the next, say all would go to the B feature. But in this case, we're just going to do top all to the A feature, hit save. Okay, so now we have entries, we have races. Let's make a lineup. So jump over to lineups, and we have our heat race here. We can go ahead and calculate our lineup. We arguably have way too many options for calculating your lineup. If you go to all lineups, you can see everything that's available for a heat race. It's overwhelming, I know. There's lineups in here that I'm not even sure what they do anymore, but if you have any questions on them, you can certainly reach out and we'll be happy to help. Otherwise, you can always try it out in the sandbox just to see what it does. But in this case, we are just going to do a lineup from pill draw. You have the option to review it. So if you don't want it to go public and show up in the app, uncheck that box so it's not made public. You can calculate your lineup, and there you can see you can review it. I guess you want to make sure. So pipe fitter drew the 3, so he's on the pole. He or she, I guess, I'm not sure. But at any rate, we have our lineup. You can see there's a white flag up here. White in this case means pending because we unchecked that box to make them public. So if you did make an adjustment, so say this guy, number 74, he actually has to start at the back for whatever reason, you could choose to save only. That's going to keep it in pending status. But once you get this all reviewed, everything's good, you can hit save as lineups. Now you can see that change to blue. It's in lineup mode. Once it's in lineup mode, now is when you'll come back to MRP Live that we got connected to earlier, and you'll hit Get Lineups. So you can see it pulled down everything for all classes. So that all worked as expected. And then we'll jump over to Orbits. I have an event created. We just need to now import our groups and runs. So that Get Lineups actually saved some files to the computer, and we're going to import them here. So we'll go Browse, and the path that I chose was here. We're going to import our groups. And at this point now you can see that we have 2 classes, but we don't have any races yet. So we need to import our runs. Come back here, import our runs. And there we have Heat 1 with the drivers and the transponders. So if you're used to just putting everything right into Orbits, this is a pretty slick way to use My Race Pass to populate your Orbits fields. And the same thing is true for Westhold. We'll look at Westhold when we get to the A feature. So we have entries, races, and a lineup. So we can go ahead and we will jump over in Orbits to timing. And we got Heat 1 queued up here. And I'm going to open up the track simulator, which is here. And we will go ahead and hit play on that. And we must have a transponder mismatch, but we'll let that go through. Oops. We're going to speed that up a little bit. And we'll give them the green flag the first time around. I think 6 laps is going to be too many. But while that's happening, certainly there has to be a question. Any questions? We'll let that go. While that's going, we'll let them at least get a couple laps anyway. I'll jump back over to our lineups and we can get ready to do some results after that goes checkered. So basically the rest of the night, so after you get your entries, races, lineups made, you'll just kind of pop back and forth between making your lineups for each class, and then you'll do some results. Then you'll calculate your feature lineup and do some results. So you kind of just go back and forth here until the night's complete before you jump onto points and pay. So hopefully we got a couple laps in here. And we'll go checkered. Very eventful race. Once they all cross the line, then we should be good. And we can actually go ahead and stop that race, and you'll see what's going to happen here. In MRP Live, you don't have to look at this, but just if for some reason you get to a point where you're going to import results and you don't have them, so let's just go and actually import those results first so you can see what I mean there. If we jump back over to Heat 1, if we just refresh this page, if we refresh this page, you can see here's the latest pending race for Heat 1 that we just ran. If you get a little bit behind on doing results and maybe you're already on Heat 4 and you haven't done Heat 1 import yet, you can click MRP Live and it'll show you all those that you have ran. But in this case, we're just looking for the latest one, so we can hit Heat 1. If that pending race was not there, this is where in MRP Live, normally you're on the screen, just go to your Uploads tab. It's likely that maybe you had a little hiccup in your internet and it's still under pending. So it's going to look like this. So imagine we're under pending. You'll hit the one that did not upload, and there'll be a little button on the pending screen that says upload again or retry. But in this case, it went through. You can see that the upload happened, and that's why we're able to import it here. So the MRP Live timing will also show this latest race, but only as they cross the line. So that's where this interface that we're looking at here is where you're going to make the actual official finish. So if maybe the 6th car, his transponder actually fell off and you scored him in 5th, you can adjust the finish to match what actually happened on the track. So these are official results. What is shown in the MRP Live, the previous races tab, that's all unofficial because it's just as they cross the line, or the real-time situation there. So we have our 10 drivers. The 11th guy must had, I think it maybe had a bad transponder. I don't know what happened there, but if we leave this box checked, it will automatically put him into the finish. This is one of the newer features that maybe, I don't think it's been out for a whole year yet. I think it was last fall when we added that. You can very easily just hit save as completed, and it's going to pop the 99 in down at the bottom here and mark him as it did not start. These two are yellow. They ended up having the same time, which that could have been a side effect of the MyLapse demo that we just did. I'm not sure, but it'll highlight rows that have a tie. So that's handy for a qualifying situation. We don't necessarily have any tiebreaker rules in place. So if you break off of their second lap or you break off of who did it first, we highlight the row and allow you to fix them accordingly. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the heat race situation, but if it were a qualifying race, you'd want to take a closer look. So we have everybody that was in the lineup is in the results, and we've saved it as completed. You can always go back to your races tab and see where you were at with things. So we have not made an A feature lineup yet. It's still pending. It's that white flag we talked about, but heat 1 is completed. So we can go and make a feature lineup. So we'll come in here. And again, you have the option. You can make your own lineup however you'd like. If you need to delete them out, there's that option as well. Same filtering that we talked about before. And there's a number of options here that are kind of, as you get comfortable, you can, there's inverts you can do, redraws, things like that. But for the feature here, we're going to calculate from heats and Bs, and we'll just set them to public right away. So you can see it. We click calculate, and it went right to a blue flag. It's in lineup mode. If you did want to do an invert, so let's say we're going to invert the top 4, you can see that the number 4 should go to the poll. So flip the top 4, and we'll hit save as lineups. I guess the last way that we haven't really looked at here is to actually key them in here. So if you have a lineup that you've made on paper and you just want to hit car numbers, so you just go 74, enter, 12, enter, 1SD, enter, and you can very easily just key them in that way. So if we don't have your lineup, or if there is some reason that your lineup calculation is not working, you can always key them in. Not the end of the world. So we'll save that as our lineup and jump back over to MRP Live, and we're going to actually disconnect so that we can reconnect to Westhold. So by default, it should have your IP address in here, but one of the things with Westhold, sometimes if it doesn't match, for those that are using Westhold, on the setup tab here, just make sure that this IP address matches, and in this case, we're good. If you still had an issue connecting, 9 times out of 10 with Westhold, either your IP address changed, or you maybe got MRP Live open before you had Westhold open. So I always just suggest if you get an error and it says you can't connect, close out of MRP, close out of Westhold, and then reopen Westhold's Race Manager. Let it sit for 15, 20 seconds, let it kind of find its home, and then open MRP. And almost 9 times out of 10, that will solve the issue, as silly as that sounds. But so we're going to choose Race Manager. And the unique thing about Race Manager is that you do need to have a specific path of where you're saving these. So in MRP Live, we're actually going to save the lineup files to a folder which will be created for you when you install Westhold. Race Manager assign. So make sure you have that path selected. Hit connect. It will let you connect if you have the wrong path in there, but what you'll find when you click get lineups is that there won't actually be anything that comes in here. This window up here only looks at that Race Manager /assign folder. So we got our A feature 1. You can notice it didn't pull down heat race number 1 because it's no longer in lineup mode. It only pulls the races that are actually in lineup status. So if you're looking for a race and you're not seeing it there, either you did not save it as lineups, or it's already been completed, or I guess any number of things. Just make sure that it's in lineup status. So our A feature, we have, again, the 4 cars on the poll. So we'll jump over to timing and do a pre-start and start them, let them race. And then on the MRP side, we can go and get ready to import that and get to the results for MRP stock cars, A feature 1. And we'll checker that one, hit stop. You can save it if you would like. I would recommend saving it just to be safe. And then you can see, again, oh, did not go. It's not impending. Let's see if it's here. We refresh this. It did not go. These are the beauty of live demos. Boy. Again, I apologize. I haven't done one of these for a while, so I must have missed a step somewhere. Let's see. Let the race go. Yeah, it didn't actually pick up. Still saying waiting for the race to start. So not actually sure what that would be. I haven't used it on this machine for a while, so I may have a setting off somewhere. But the good thing about it is we actually will have the opportunity here to, let me see where I saved that file. We're going to import, instead of using MRP Live, we're actually going to import it using that CSV file that we save. So this is being saved to Race Manager results. So there's always kind of a backup plan here. If your MRP Live, for whatever reason, isn't reading the transponders, I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm really curious, but you can always go upload a file. So here we go. We'll browse to the C drive. It was under Race Manager, and we saved it in results. And here's that A feature. Hit open and import that. And maybe this is part of it. I'm not sure who this was supposed to be, but if you have this happen where either a transponder was mismatched or a driver didn't come through, you'll click him to turn it green and say, okay, that was actually the 87. And we'll let the 99 go in as a DNS again. So not the best demo, but I guess we have to see another piece of the puzzle here. You can import from MRP Live. You can import from a CSV file that you save. Orbitz has that option as well. The last option, there was 3 options there: MRP Live, a CSV, or you could actually copy and paste if it's from another format. So plenty of options should something go sideways to get your results put in. And obviously I shouldn't say obviously, but the last option, if you don't have any imports available, or maybe you're not even running transponders, you would come in here and you can click the drivers in the order that they finished. Or again, you can type car numbers. So just car number, enter, and you can very quickly get your entire field of cars populated. And you have the option to rearrange them, mark any DNSs, DQs. You'll notice DQ, when I hit save, DQ is automatically going to shuffle him to the bottom. Or, oh, we didn't save the import originally. So after saving the original import, you can see it shuffled the DQ to the bottom. The did not start is, they fall in line after that. The did not finish gets precedence because he actually made laps. Any questions on that? That was kind of a little bit of black magic. Let's do that again. So you can see this guy's a DNF, did not start. DQ, it's actually going to flip them. So it did not finish is better than it did not start, which is better than a DQ. So we got through that. There's other options down here if you need to make notes on the race, who led what laps, why there was a DQ. You can always type in down here what happened so that you have it as reference. You can share it to social media, or you can come in here and copy and paste it for your press release, the lineups, the results, all sorts of options here. But in the interest of time, we are going to move on unless there's questions. We're going to jump over and calculate some points. So the last tab here, the points and pay. Easiest thing after you get through a couple weeks is that you're going to have previous options here to choose how you want to calculate points. So if we were going to do this the same as what we did on March 2nd, you could just hit that. It's going to pull up and have automatically chose the proper scheme that you want to use. So your point schemes, your pay schemes, I will show you where these come from. I'm not sure if we have another webinar coming up, so I don't want to just gloss over these, but let's fill out, let's say that they're using the March special pay and the IMCA modified points. We'll hit add. So those two options come from on the top right here under settings, points and pay. This is probably more than we need to get into right now, but I just wanted you guys to see for championship points, we have all these options here. I believe we chose the IMCA modifieds. So you can see they are not giving any heat points, but the A feature is going to start at 40. And then for the payout, I think we chose the March special, which should be given 80, 75, 70. So we'll jump back over here for the A feature. You have 40 points and he got 80 bucks. You can always adjust these. If he got bonus points for leading a lap, you can give him 2 extra points. And maybe there was somebody put up an extra 100 bucks for him to win. So we'll hit save. And the first section here just is your event totals. So you can very quickly kind of look down the list, make sure everybody got the proper points and pay. As you scroll down the page, it's going to give you the per race breakdown about how they got those points and pay, or show up points down here at the bottom. Other things here, if you're giving points to owners, you would check this box. If you're giving points to a car or a team, you check that box. And then this is the schedule that it applies to. So if this particular March 20th event was in multiple schedules, you would choose, which corresponding schedule you're actually tracking points for. If you need to do a review and don't want it to be public, just go ahead and deactivate it so that you have time to fix or make any updates you need to. And then the last thing here, you can actually make multiple point groups. So if you had, say, one point group is for your feature races, or maybe your B features because you want to get the payout done for those, you could actually add a points group for, or your pay group for your B features, and then you'd come back up here and say add additional points and pay once your A feature is done. So that is just kind of one of those things that you can, as you get more comfortable with it, you can actually split that out, and again, kind of just an added efficiency there. But once it's all set, you'll go ahead and click Create Payments. And here you have a review, once again, of the pay that you're about to do. So our winner is owed $180. We're going to pay him $180. You do have a chance here. If somebody comes in last minute and says, I want to give him another 100, you could pay him an extra 200 right here. I would recommend going back and edit it on the other screen, because this is going to then kind of yell at you and say, this, we got a mismatch here. Why are you paying him 280 when he's only owed 180? So let's put that back to 180. If you were to jump back over here and do it, so on the feature, we're going to give him an extra 200. Hit save. And then back on our payment screen, we can just sync that back up. So now it says he's owed 280. Yep, we're going to pay him 280. And that will resolve that issue. There's a number of other things here, whether or not you have an address. If you're printing and mailing checks out, you want to make sure you have an address for everybody. This tells you that we didn't manually alter that pay. If you are not printing a check, you have other options. I would recommend, even if you're not printing checks, to create payments so that at the end of the year, you're reporting, whether it be for just sort of year-end summaries or for tax reasons, make sure that you have this all squared away as an official payment. Our 1099 report only runs off of this payment data. So if you stop at the end of the night, you stop here and you don't actually create payments, your 1099 reporting is not going to include everything that you did. So even if you're paying cash, make sure to come in here, mark them all as cash, and hit save. To finish this out, let's say that we're going to print a couple checks. Maybe we print checks for the top 5. Everybody else gets cash. And let's do top 3. Hit save. So these guys are going to get a check. And we'll hit create checks. This check type here is our most common. It's in our help center. If you go to mrphelp.com, it'll show you where to order those checks. You'll put in your starting check number. So let's say we're going to start the check number 1001. Here's the 3 checks that we said we're going to print. One last chance to review them. I take that back. You're going to get one more chance. But you check this box saying that you understand that these are the correct totals. And this is just to see how you want your checks printed. A lot of people like to have them by car number so that when they show up to the pay window, you can just say, what was your car number? And the stack of checks will already be in order. So hit create. Here's the checks as they will print. So you'll load your checks into the printer. I always recommend doing a test print. Just print the first one. So when you go to print, instead of printing all of them, just print page 1. Just to make sure that you have, do they go face down, face up, top first, bottom first, however it may be, make sure you get it right, because you don't want to end up having to void out a bunch of checks. So we'll print 1 check, and always check your margins before you go to print. Make sure your margins are set to default and your scaling as well. If for some reason you were printing lineups, which maybe we'll jump back if we have time here and I can show you some of that reporting as well. Sometimes people will scale their lineups so that they fill out the whole sheet or what have you, or maybe they want to crunch it down to fit it on one page. When it comes to check printing, make sure you've chosen the defaults, and then you can actually hit, well, this is going to a PDF, but if it were going to an actual printer, you'd hit print, and you'd be on your way. There's a payout report here that has a nice summary of what you did. So we printed these 3 checks. The system doesn't actually know if you actually printed them, so it thinks you did. You created the checks. Whether or not you actually printed them is another thing, but we assume that you did go through with printing them all. Here's who was paid. And that is the gist of that page. You probably want to print this just to give it to somebody at the end of the night to turn in. Jumping back here, I mentioned voiding checks. So if you did end up having a bad check and you need to void it, you can come in here, hit void, hit save. It'll take that out of your 1099 report. Just a number of things here. At the end of the night, say you get all done, close it out, and then somebody brings something to your attention that you need to go back and fix. All of your payments, so we'll jump back here to we're in race management. If you need to get back to a previous payment, you can always do that by going to season management, go to your payments, and I'm going to close these tabs. So we're on our payment screen in season management. And if we scroll down, here's the ones from March 20th that we just made. So if you need to go back and make modifications, that's kind of the quick way to get there without having to go through race management and then click on points and pay and then go here. You can always just go right through season management and payments. So I mentioned, I kind of glossed over lineup printing. So to do that, there's a ton of reports up here. Lineup sheet is, I think, probably preferred. Myself, I actually like the lineup better. Has kind of the rows laid out on the right-hand side, pretty nice, but there is a number of options for printing lineups. Under this reports tab, you can print, there's lots of things here. So your transponder list, I mentioned rental transponders. If you need to see at the end of the night who had a rented transponder, you can see these 2 are the ones that I had checked. Lineups are the main thing that you'll want to print, but there's result reports, there's payment reports, passing points, all sorts of stuff up there. I think the last thing I wanted to mention, I talked briefly about that 1099 report. So if we go over to our reports tab and we go to points and pay, there is a yearly payout report. This, I understand it's March, so maybe it's a ways off, but keep an eye on this at least monthly to make sure that your 1099 report looks to be in check. It's going to tell you up top here if there's events that you ran that you did not create payments. So our March 20th is not in here because we did create payments, but there's some races here that we did not create payments for. So that is going to cause an error in your 1099. So keep an eye on this. We automatically filter by those that made 600 and up, but you can, if you choose to show all payees, that'll kind of give you an audit trail of who's getting what. So that is, I think, our topics for tonight. It's a lot of information. I hope most of you are still with me. Somebody's got to have a question. That's a lot of information for there to be no questions, but I guess if there aren't any, I'll take it as a compliment, but there's got to be at least one out there. Let's see. A few things I wanted to mention, just some housekeeping stuff. MRP Live, we did push out an update recently. You've probably gotten the emails where we've been kind of pushing you guys to make sure you're on the latest version. So definitely do this before you get to the track, or at least an hour ahead of time before you're going to run your first race. Open up MRP Live, click on Help, and click on About. Make sure that your version starts with a 5. If it doesn't, it's going to force you to update before you can actually run any races. So if you are not on version 5, there'll be a link that says, update now. Otherwise, you can always just come out here, type in getmrp.live, and that'll start the download process. Lastly, where we originally connected to MRP Live, you can actually click this download link right here as well. Please make sure you do that before your first race. We don't want to put anybody in a bad spot, but that's the unfortunate part about installed software, is that eventually you do have to update it. So keep an eye on that. A few other items, I guess, just to mention, I'll paste these in the chat. I mentioned our help center, mrphelp.com. mrphelp.com is a great tool for basically kind of self-serving. If you have questions, just come out here. I mentioned check printing. The search is awesome on here, so just type in check printing, and it'll give you a run through on how to print checks. And down here at the bottom, we have some sources for you to order those checks to make sure that the checks that you have are going to line up, and print properly. Make sure you use these as kind of a guide to make sure that they match up with what you have either in stock or what you're about to purchase. The next thing that I pasted in there, the support at myracepass.com, is kind of a second line of, if you can't find the answer to your question out here, by all means, shoot us an email, support at myracepass.com. myracepass.com/YouTube has all of our previous webinars on a variety of topics. And then some. There's promotional videos. There's all sorts of stuff out there on YouTube. So be sure to check that out. If you haven't already joined our My Race Pass Promoter Support Group on Facebook, just go to facebook.com and search for My Race Pass Promoter Support Group. Be sure to join that. We have a lot of sort of community questions that come in. It's a great tool. Like if you have just kind of an off-the-wall question to see how other people are doing something, that's a great spot for it. And then lastly, probably where you all started out tonight, myracepass.com/live-training has our full webinar schedule. So tonight we got through race management, orbits, Westhold, points and pay. Friday, we're going to dive into online tickets, some additional features with online tickets that you may or may not be aware of, how to add news if you have a website, or even if you're just looking to have some news posted to your MRP profile. We'll cover how to do that, along with several other website tools that you may or may not be aware of. If you have any questions on what's in your current plan, if you have, a profile or access to a website, just go to myracepass.com under products and services. Race management will kind of tell you, if you go to the pricing model here, what features you have available, and then all the information on the website package. The cool thing about our websites is the efforts that you're putting in on race night will automatically update your website. So if you or someone in your on staff is having to deal with updating a website, and it's a pain. One of the cool things that it's kind of how we started, was building websites, and race management was the tool that we built to help update the website. So it's kind of backwards from how we look at it now. Most people just are after race management, but the cool part is that all those efforts that you put in will automatically, as the night's going on, your website's being updated. So take a look at that. And yeah, I think we're pretty close on time here. A couple more minutes. If anybody's thought of any questions or wants to hang out, I will be here. But otherwise, I do appreciate all of you joining us. And come back Friday to hear about how to sell some tickets before 4 o'clock, the day of your event. Always nice to get that coming in and kind of get them locked down. You know, they don't have to make that decision. They've already purchased ahead of time. So thank you again. I appreciate all you being on here. Have a good rest of your evening. And like I said, I'll hang out if there are any questions. By all means, feel free to ask. Thank you.